Oh, there we go. No hands. Don't touch it. Oh. Hi, Scott L. I think I'm doing this in a timely fashion, and I'm accrediting that so that you know, yeah. Apparently, there we go. I walked too far. I was trying to go sit in blue. I thought I could sit in blue. Apparently, my Wi-Fi doesn't like that. So, we'll do a little parking lot tour then, I guess, because, you know, what the heck, I'm already out here. Rainy day, but we've got masks and we're happy. And hello, Scott. Yes, I was saying that I made sure to come on and do this live so that I didn't get yelled at by our social media manager to make sure that things were moving smoothly in a timely manner, like we said. We're going to let a couple more people jump on here, and then we're going to explain a little bit of what our hope to do a little giveaway is. But behind us, and by us I mean me, of course we've got our lead mechanics, the LSXJ back here, 37s, lots of freedom under the hood, and then of course this has a GM base LS motor, and over here is a very cool Jeep just up from Florida, and it previously had a blown, so supercharged and stroked 4.0, which made it roughly a 4.6, 4.7 with power adder. And that customer was having a lot of fun with it, and now that motor stopped working, so we're going to a Hemi at this point. So it's up. The motor is up at Gallin Engine in New Hampshire, and we should be getting that back here in the next couple weeks. So we're going to be doing disassembly on this. We have a very cool page, TJ, it's a Hemi conversion page that the owner, and then he's invited us on to kind of chronicle that some. It's a very cool Jeep. If you've been in or seen us, we've worked on this one for a couple years, and we unveiled it a couple years ago at Bantam. It's a metal cloak long arm. It's a brand new frame from Throttle Down Customs. It's got metal cloak 6-pack game changer shocks at all four corners. The shocks in the back are outboarded. It's got Core 44 axles front and rear, and then PSC hydro. It's got a hydraulic hydro assist brakes on there, Mishimoto, Durali, and some just other gnarly mods under the hood that kind of right now is a blueprint for when we're building. You know, gnarly TJs. This one kind of set the pace for us. Hey, Skaggs, I know you're waiting on your estimate, man. I'm sorry. That's where I'm at. I'm just gonna say that. I'm gonna get that estimate, and to Kat, thank you so much for putting up with estimate. Oh man, I disconnected. All right, people have seen the Woody video before. It's back, and silly enough, it was a key issue. We just had to get a better cut on the key, and so it's back now. It's done, and we've been test driving it, trying to work, find little bugs out of it. We are open. Yeah, I saw somebody ask about that. Yeah, we're on appointment base only. We're really trying not to have too many people come into the showroom. You know, lobby area. We really don't want to encourage people, you know, sitting and waiting. Watch the watch the light. There we go. Really don't want to encourage a lot of sitting and waiting, but we are here to answer the phone. We're a little man down, a couple man down at this time. Hey, Mark. So I wonder if it's lunch break. Mark, your Jeep. We'll sneak past you. This is our essential worker, which means do not pass go. Greg right now is underneath the hood of this one. Mark's back there. Mark's getting his 3/8 heads and intake manifold are off at the engine shop, the engine local one, not the one in New Hampshire. And it's off getting the heads decked and the intake manifold planed so that the everything sits back together nicely and creates a good, secure fitment, right? So too many places, too many people go to do the head gaskets or the valley gaskets on the intake, and they just take it apart and slap it back together. And so we actually send it out, get to the machine shop to check it, smooth it out, plane it out, so that the guys can do a good quality reassembly. So our very own Scott Lindquist, so our social media manager, you see him out and about. Here's his LJ hanging in the air. He just got a new transmission. I see his wife just logged on, so I think they're on the same page with all that he's gotten done, but he got a new transmission in there and fully adjustable rear control arms, all 4 of them, flex it out a little bit better, get rid of the rubber cleveite bushings, and they're also serviceable for future aspect. And lastly, this one's been sitting here for a couple weeks just because of the coronavirus shutdown. Really cool, kind of an old school built 4.0. So that gives you Scagalone's Jeep is, I mentioned that the TJ outside, his is about a year in the making, big frame off job, long arms, built axles, fuel cell, really cool moto-built fuel cell and fuel system on that. PSC hydro kit. He's looking at 37s, bead locks, air it down, and just let it grip and rip. Hey, Jerry, it's good seeing you. It's good seeing you. Jerry Huber from the Toledo Jeep Fest and Jeep collector. He has got some of the coolest, unique vehicles, kind of a personal collection. So if you ever get to Toledo Jeep Fest, you can check out some of his really gnarly stuff. So we've got a good base on here, so I want to share with you our game plan for today. And the plan right now, so this is actually like National Pizza Day, and while I've got my coffee there, and actually I have my lunch in the back, we want to do something fun for people who are joining in and watching and sticking with us. We had a blast the last live. We had good questions and lots of interaction, lots of great feedback. And so we want to do something fun and kind of give back to you guys. So right now, Scott Lindquist, who I was mentioning before, is watching the live, and he's watching from the admin side of things. He's watching everyone who's logging on. And what he is going to do is at random, we have these random generators things. He's going to randomly grab somebody's name, and then we are going to send you a pizza. I don't care where you are in the country. Obviously, if you're West Coast time, that's you might end up with a breakfast pizza. I don't know. But, you know, since it is lunchtime, we want to have a little fun. We want to encourage people to jump on the live. It is like National Pizza Friday. We're going to be taking lunch here, you know, afterwards. And so what we're going to do, just somebody hanging out, watching online, where he's basically going to contact you at random. He's going to get your address. We're going to call in. We want to work with a mom and pop pizza shop if possible. You know, your local pizzeria that, you know, has really got a bang-in pepperoni or extra cheese pizza. And we want to support your local community. We want to fill your belly, and you know, we can do that because it's as easy as Scott contacting you. You give him your address and the pizza shop you want, either a pepperoni or an extra cheese, large pizza, and we're gonna send it, set it up for delivery, tip the driver, do all that kind of stuff, so that you just get a free pizza for hanging out with us for a little bit of time and talking Jeeps. So that's the skinny on Pizza Friday, and then we're gonna talk Jeeps. And I realize my coffee cup's over there, so I'm going to grab the coffee cup because that's a priority, and then I'm gonna rant a little bit in a hopefully educational manner, and then we're gonna get to some questions because we actually had a couple overlapping questions, and so I'm gonna touch on one. Like last time I talked about re-gearing because we had just dealt with a lot of re-gearing. Today I'm gonna talk about 2-inch lift kits. 2-inch lift kits. Coffee. Make sure you stay on watching because somebody's getting a pizza. And I have no control over when the pizza decision is made. That's entirely Scott Lindquist. Like I said, it's either big pepperoni or extra cheese. Your pick. You're going to figure that out with Scott. Andy, who's related to the Jeep outside, suggested Hawaiian pizza, which I'm totally okay with, but there's a lot of people who would probably, want to fight him over that. Pineapple and ham. So, I mean, I'm not buying Hawaiian pizza today. We're buying pepperoni or extra cheese. We want to buy it from a mom and pop. If you don't have anybody, deliver Domino's or Pizza Hut, we understand there's good community people who work at those businesses too, and we'll totally support that and buy a pizza from there as well, if that's what we need to do. But we want to deliver it to your house and tip the driver and take care of them. So just a fun way for us to interact with our Jeep community. So recently we have been inundated with 2-inch lift kits. And I say that it's people who are inquiring about lifting their Jeep 2 inches, or who have actually had us work on the lift kit. I'm not actually putting that on. That's our masks. We have them if there was a person here. So here's the thing with 2-inch lift kits. They actually like make me sweat. The hairs on the back of my neck, the quarantine hair, which my wife is going to cut my hair because this is a Q-tip and it's crazy, but we haven't got there yet. 2-inch lift kits. Here's the thing. 2-inch lift kits are very, very appealing online, and we get a lot of calls and questions regarding affordable, minimal lift kits. I say 2-inch, but realistically, my dad said I don't have to send him a pizza. Scott Lindquist, don't pick my dad, which I think I probably should have said that from the beginning. Anybody associated with the business is not getting a pizza on this live. We can have pizza in the back if necessary. Greg wants pizza. We're not going to send anybody a pizza who's associated with the business. So we get a lot of people who want minimal lift kits or minimum. And I can understand. There's a couple things. Price point is very attractive. A lot of people lift their Jeeps because they want that aggressive, slightly built stance. I can also totally appreciate that. The issue is that when we look at a minimal lift kit, oftentimes we're dealing with a Jeep that is 10 to 15 to 20 years old. That gets us back into the 90s. And the issue is that many of those Jeeps have between 100 and arguably 200,000 miles on them. And so what that ends up is that Jeep has sat at its specific geometry for sometimes 20 years, 120 miles, 98,000 miles. Yeah, you pick it. So that means the bushings have sat in a compressed nature at one particular geometrical orientation. And so when we go, that bushing is rotating like this. When we go to install that lift kit, we want to break free all the control arm bolts so that we can relax the bushings. Right? This is the bushing hand. We can relax the bushings so that they rotate freely on the bolt, okay? There are sometimes when folks DIY this, or when performed by other businesses, they will not break free the control arm bolts. And therefore, that rubber cleveite bushing that has been in the same orientation for tens of thousands of miles and arguably many years is actually bound. And now, because it's no longer happy, it's actually at a bind. So we went from a nice resting, there's my example. When customers are here, I draw it on paper for them. And instead we actually bind and twist, or those businesses or the DIY folks do that. So the issue is that Jeep that's been sitting for a really long time or has a lot of miles on it, those bolts are typically frozen to the sleeves. The hardware itself is problematic. And what ends up happening is that lift kit that cost originally $130 to $300, which is a price point very, very attractive, we now have to replace hardware. Arguably, the control arm bushings are not happy being reoriented. And typically for that $130 to $300 price point, you're not addressing track bar, sway bar end links, front or rear, and or brake lines if you're going to use it in an off-road manner. So the thing is, the general consumer is very attracted to the price point of, say, $120 to $300. And believe me, I can fully appreciate that. But the issue is that to accurately and correctly install a 2-inch or 2.5-inch lift kit on a older Jeep in a manner that is going to retain its on-road and off-road capabilities that you have been enjoying for a couple years or months or however long you've owned it, that there's actually much, much more that needs to be done in the meantime, because a lot of stuff has to be addressed that's not addressed in that price point. So typically speaking, when customers are asking me about a 2-inch or 2.5-inch, I love to quote, and again, we're talking about vehicles that are, you know, typically between 8 and 20 years old. So we're not talking about, you know, brand new JLs. That's kind of different, because everything is going to break free. Bolts are going to be really nice hardware. We can totally do a budget boost in those, and you can be very, very happy with them. With one little exception. We always do track bars. Now, a lot of people are either unaware of what a track bar does, and or kind of overlook, say, well, it's not in the kit, so why should I be concerned about it? And the reality is that track bars are the main connection point that centers all of your 4-link, so your coil sprung platforms, Jeeps, as far as your Grand Cherokees to your TJs to your JKs and the front end of your XJs. That bar is what centers the axle underneath the body of the Jeep. Now, left unaddressed, it affects something called roll center. And roll center is how the Jeep behaves when cornering or in off-camber situations. That's important. It really is. Because people say, well, you know, I lifted it, it's good, I got coils and I've got springs. I really just wanted that little slightly bigger look. And, you know, now when I go to drive it to the grocery store, pick up my, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, however, it's not quite the handling experience that you enjoyed previously. Now, our big thing as a professional business is that we want you to enjoy your Jeep as much, if not more, after you've picked it up from us than before. Granted, we are confined by how many things you want to do to your Jeep that, you know, that need addressed in the period of time that we have it. That's a constraint. But when actually setting you up for success, the tools in our toolbox for success, when doing a 2 or 2.5-inch lift kit, we have to address track bar. Because otherwise, what it does is if we don't address the track bar, then we pull the axle ever slightly out of its natural roll center. That means we're actually pulling the axle one side or the other of the Jeep. So these lift kits that don't address track bars, front or rear, you actually take the axles, which are tracked down the road or from the engineer like this, and we actually shift them opposite direction. That's the worst case scenario. So a 2.5 inch lift can actually shove your front axle, say, 1/4 inch to, well, I guess they'll actually go this way, 1/4 inch to the driver, and the rear axle 1/4 inch to the passenger. And so now all of a sudden, your Jeep that was a few days earlier, the axles were tracking true on each other, are now actually 1/2 to 5/8 out of true. And now the roll center, the actual center of gravity of the Jeep and how the Jeep is going to shift its weight either side is completely out of whack. Let alone when we have roll center, if we have not addressed our sway bar end links, now the sway bar actually has it has an angle that it is within spec at. And if you have not addressed your sway bar end links, making them longer, and our recommendation is always a quicker disconnect or a anti-rock system, but if you haven't done that and you just want to go with fixed longer end links, then the issue is that that sway bar is actually creating what basically is non-engineered down pressure. And what ends up happening, so now not only are our axles upwards of 1/2 to 5/8 out of true, but then our sway bar is actually creating a out of spec pressure. So the actual handling of the vehicle is completely out of whack from what you just experienced prior to installing the lift kit. And this is why it's a very loaded question when you call in for us, wanting us to perform the work for you, is because that $120 lift kit, while it was very price point attractive, we now are asking you to buy a track bar in the front at minimum. And we want to buy new sway bar end links. And then you say, hey, you know what, I think I'm going to be a weekend warrior. I want to go hit up Southington or Scrubgrass, or I'm going to go to Silver Lake, whatever it might be. That's all our local ones. Then that actually just compounds the list, because now we're actually going to be using those bushings a lot in a new position that they've never been in. So 120,000 miles, 98,000 miles, those bushings are now sitting in a new position that they did not previously sit in. They're going to deteriorate quicker. And then not only are they going to deteriorate quicker, but now we've got more extension and compression. And that $120 lift kit does not typically address bump stops. And bump stops are a completely overlooked piece. People are like, I don't even know what a bump stop is. I don't need a bump stop. Bump stop is what allows us to run a bigger tire on a system so that it comes up and it does not destroy the body or the fender flare. And so it actually allows the axle not to travel any further in a kind of a compressed nature. And so that's what bump stops are. And again, so that base level kit didn't address all those things. So now if you're going to off-road it with that 2.5 inch lift kit, we need to address bump stops. So we've now added track bar and sway bar links and bump stops. And arguably we need to address bushings, or you're going to be addressing them within 3 to 6 months. And lastly is our brake hoses, because at that point in time we're putting undue stress or pressure on the brake hoses. As the guys like to call it, they turn into banjo strings. So we start over here with a really attractive 2 or 2.5 inch lift kit, and by the end of the conversation it looks like I'm trying to upsell you into a couple $1,000s worth of mods. The reality is we've seen what works. And if we start with this base kit, if you are a DIYer and you're going to maintenance it, and you're going to, you say, hey, that's good, I'm going to do this week, and in 2 weeks from now, I'm going to go ahead and buy that track bar. And in 2 weeks more, I'm going to go ahead and get adjustable control arms. That's cool too. But just to simply say, I see this $100 kit, I see this $300 kit, I see this $400 kit, whatever it might be, why would they sell that? And that gets me to the last part of the educational rant, if you will. They sell it because it's attractive price point. And we come down to this conversation of just because you can doesn't mean you should. And we have, I'll say, become lax as an industry because we sell things to try and attract people into systematically building their Jeep. We understand that not everybody can just come in and light their credit card on fire or break their budget. We appreciate that. But the issue is that then we need to create incremental ways for people to invest wisely in their vehicle. So that's why those kits are sold that way. Okay, we're starting with a base and then we're adding parts. The issue is that somehow people are under the impression that basically if they buy that kit, they never have to do anything more. And that's the rub. We don't want that to be what people believe is happening. You're buying that kit as a foundation, and then we're going to continue to build upon it until it is right. And so when you come in and you ask us to do it, we want to do the job right. That's how we want it. I want you to pick it up. And again, when I said my name's on the building, I want that Jeep to drive away being right. That's the integrity of what we associate with it. But that doesn't mean that's where every DIYer is going to start from. But when we consult with you, that's what we're trying to explain, that we want the product to be right. We want to give you the tools to be successful. So that's my thing. I've dealt with a lot of 2.5 inch lift kits. Just a couple weeks ago, we put a couple on. And again, these are customers who understood what I just shared, but it's one of those things that I'm constantly, when I'm pulled into consultation, it's one of the things that I'm constantly sharing is we have base level kits and why are they sold that way. And the other piece is what I love about kits, and I've seen it recently called on YouTube and some of the Facebook groups, hybrid kits. Okay, which is just. That's fun, I guess. It basically means I'm taking the best parts I like from over here and the best parts I like from over here. I love JKS track bars. I love JKS track bars and rock crawler track bars. Arguably, I have reasons why. I could geek out about track bars all day long. And there's a number of different companies, and I could, pros and cons of all the different track bar designs. We sell a lot of the JKS, we sell some of the rock crawler, some of the Steer Smarts, some of the Rusties, and honestly some of the Rough Country, because actually Rough Country's got a pretty gnarly track bar out there. Not saying their whole product line is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It gets the job done in many situations, but they have a track bar that's really beefy. Some of them have dual bushings on either end. Some of them have a Curry joint, a Curry Johnny joint. Some of them are Heim/rod end. They all have their own little thing. So maybe I like so-and-so's springs, and I like so-and-so's arms, and I like so-and-so's track bars. And if you've worked with me, single or double adjustable track bar, I'm going to come right back to that. If you've worked with me, you might actually have a hybrid lift kit. I never thought to associate a really fun, catchy name to it, but I'm totally using that now that I've seen all these YouTube people using it and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. I'll often grab Rusty's control arms or JKS control arms or rock crawler track bar and Steer Smarts tie rod end and whatever, however, and build a kit what we have the most confidence in. So that's why those kits are sold individually price point. And most recently, the last one is I've seen people calling them systems, lift kit systems. 25 years ago, a lift kit was what we're now calling a system. You went in and you bought everything you needed. Brake hoses, brackets, control arms, leaf springs, because everything was leaf sprung then. You bought it all, and that's what a lift kit was. And now we've used this term kit kind of very generically, and it just, it means it's a small portion of a much bigger assembly or process. Single or double adjustable track bar, and why? So hi Don and Dave. When I was new, you were the one who took the time to explain all this. Oh, this is thank you, Dave Welch. Yeah, we got Dave hooked up, and we want people to enjoy their Jeeps, no matter what you're doing with it. If you're going to get ice cream or you want to wheel hard, we want to give you our time and our knowledge and our experience to set you up for success, because I believe that then when you have fun in your Jeep, you then look back and go, hey, you know what? These guys are who steered me in the right direction, and I'm going to keep working with them because they did everything, and they took the time to explain to me why we were making the choices we made. So we have single shear and double shear track bars, which is a phrase you'll hear get thrown out. And then as far as adjustability is concerned, we're always going for adjustable parts. As a professional and personal level, some people know about me. I used to be in the climbing industry. I used to help build challenge courses, zip lines, not high rises, but high climbing course stuff. And one of the pieces that we would kind of preach was less items, less parts in the system, meaning you don't want to have your climbing line and then a carabiner and then another carabiner and then finally your harness. If you get back old school enough, there's some climbers who would just be like, I just want to use my rope, and they would use friction knots around their body. Cool. That same principle gets transferred over to lift kits. I'm like crouching. There we go. As long as that's not too bright. Gets transferred over to lift kits. And the idea is that we don't want to use a lot of brackets. Now, I do appreciate there are a number of really pro businesses building high quality kits based on brackets. And in fact, oftentimes, not recently, but oftentimes, a lot of your Mopar Chrysler lift kits over the years have come heavily bracketed, meaning they dropped control arms, they used brackets to relocate track bars, and that was all with the intention to create factory geometry by using a bracket to make up the distance of the axle moving. So as far as the lift got taller, they moved the bracket up so as to retain factory geometry. So I can understand what they're doing, but realistically, we want less parts in the system. So we want adjustability. We want big jam nuts out of big threaded rod ends that we can, make sure that that's all torqued in appropriately versus smaller hardware. So instead we had, say, one fastening point at the axle for your track bar, and a bracket will relocate it up in the rear or in the front. And what that now does is that puts a second piece of hardware in the system. And if we talk about some basic math, we've now created leverage point, because we've actually made that lever longer by putting a bracket in. Whereas if we put an adjustable component, whether that's a control arm, a track bar, some of those types of components, we can actually dial in the suspension so that it is darn near true or perfect to itself. Equally, if you have a Jeep that's been damaged in the past, this is my soapbox, we can actually set the lengths of those arms at different lengths so that the axles are tracking true under a Jeep that maybe has a little frame twist to it. We've done that quite a few times for people who have brought us, salvage Jeeps to try and set up their suspension and so on and so forth. So with the track bar specifically, I love double shear at this point. And what that means is that basically the track bar mounts. This is going to be a really tough one without having some diagram stuff. Your traditional track bar has a stem mount that goes up and a bolt mount that goes through. So we have a vertical and a horizontal. And so the top stem at the frame side is this vertical bolt, and the bottom bolt at the the axle side is a horizontal bolt. And what happens under extreme articulation, this bolt can only travel so far before it starts to wear on the tie rod end component here at this side. So that's again why that 2-inch lift kit under, say, a TJ or an XJ front end is really problematic, because now we're dealing with kind of a weak joint right here that's getting bound in either direction. So what a dual shear does is it turns both of those mounts, frame side and axle side, into horizontal bolts. So now as that Jeep is doing, that axle is articulating under that Jeep, the energy transfer, the plane of energy is same on either end. See how my fingers, they're traveling kind of in with each other? And so the energy transfer is actually similar on either side. And that's going to be a double shear track bar. Now your JKs and your JLs actually, the engineers, God bless them, actually just started doing that themselves in 07. All of our older platforms, we still have a single shear at the frame side and the horizontal double shear at the axle side. Love to talk to you more about that. Adjustability, we're just looking for something to adjust in the center. Now this is where I'm going to talk about that rough country track bar. They actually have a track bar, and it's beefy. It's a very beefy track bar. The overall diameter of it's good size. The wall thickness is good, and it has, we're doing work, that's good. It has an adjuster in the middle, so it's kind of a double adjuster. Impact. So it means it has left threads and right threads, and you just adjust the center. That gives us really, really precise adjustability. That's great. I believe Steinjager has a similar design that has an adjuster. When I say I believe, I know they do. They have an adjuster, center mass double adjust, so it actually is equilaterally pushing tie rod end to, or Heim rod end, whatever you want, to the actual throw of the arm of the track bar. And so that's very cool. It gives us very precise adjustability. Whereas a single adjustable, if we're just taking one end out and spinning it, because many of the bars have a break, meaning they have a curve, natural curve, or a rod end to it, or a tie rod end, or a regular rod end, that sometimes we'll only be able to do a half turn or a full turn so that we orient the component correctly for the Jeep. So the adjustability is not as precise. Good, way better than a bracket, but not as precise as a double adjusted. Also, impacting. Greg has built some really gnarly custom steering setups in his day, and we actually started adding double adjustment or a tie rod adjuster or some type of sleeve adjustment on many of those steering kits, so that again we can really fine tune and play with toe in, toe out, steering wheel straightness, so on and so forth. So ideally double shear with an adjuster, but honestly, JKS track bars don't have that. Rock crawler track bars don't have that, and those are among my favorite track bars. And I say that because they're robust. Thank you, Dave, for telling me that you can hear us fine you can hear me fine during impacting, because I didn't know. I can hear impacting. We have the compressor going. It's a working space. We're trying to keep up the best we can. So the reason that the JKS and the rock crawler are on my top list is because of how robust they are and how those companies stand behind their product development. And so it's important to, you know, to focus on those things. Good USA made products in JKS, rock crawler, Rusty's, great good USA companies, as many others that we primarily support, and that's a very important thing for us, especially in this time. But I think if you followed us for any period of time, we are, you know, America first components. Yes, we do sell some import parts. Again, it kind of goes back to that 2-inch lift kit. People are attracted to price point, and sometimes that's your only choice, and you're going to start out with that base product, and then eventually you'll kind of build onto it, and that's okay. That's okay. But ideally, we want to sell you that USA product first. I haven't seen any other questions. So I did get a question about shift linkages. I actually got a couple questions about this. And again, it's really interesting to see where our industry was 30 years ago and where our industry is now. So factory linkage is what's called, on pre-JK, is called Z linkage. And that linkage, it actually is it's a physical, and I just had this conversation with a customer today. It is it's a series of rods, physical rods, connecting each other. All right, here's the good thing. It works really well when the vehicle runs off the factory production line. I'm talking 0.4 miles. That Z linkage works amazing. But it doesn't last very long. What happens is that the rust, and I'm all about binding. Right? I'm reaching here again, binding. The rust. There's actually some plastic parts that create bushings. So for the throw of the Z linkage to actually work, there's some plastic parts that eventually wear out. And thank you, Kevin. Yes, USA products. Yes, drive 2 hours. That's why our market radius is 3+ hours. We're not going anywhere. We're committed to our local communities, and we want the best products for our Jeep community. You're going to see us on the trail, so it better be darn good so that I can look you in the eye. Back to my Z linkage. Z linkage works really good for the first couple miles that it rolls off the lot. Eventually, the elements get to those rods. The plastic will break down. We get a lot of customers who don't use their four-wheel drive throughout honestly, the summer, because they're just, point A to point B vehicles for them, just on our maintenance side. And they go to shift it into four-wheel drive the first snow that we have, and the linkage pops apart. Or let's say you put that lift kit on, and instead of doing an SYE, which I saw a question about, and as much as I would love to talk for hours on SYEs, I'm going to spare that for another time. That linkage, now that we do a transfer case drop, which means we actually lower the belly pan with a spacer kit. You see a lot of companies with little, maybe aluminum pucks. They used to sell a 1-inch piece of square stock steel from front to back on the belly pan. And we lower that to keep appropriate geometry from the drive shaft output yoke of the rear axle for the rear output yoke of the transfer case. And actually, on a factory situation, those two want to be in a fairly flat plane with each other. And so we lower the transfer case so that we can reduce this angle between the two. What that does is it puts undue pressure on that fixed Z linkage that has been sitting there happy for the many years before you've owned it. So, 10 years ago, I think, specifically Novak adapter came out with a cable shift kit. We sell those cable shift kits, one per week basically. They're so good. And what it does is it creates a cable actuated motion to take the throw of your four-wheel drive shifter back and actually then pull the transfer case into the shift position it needs to, so that you can have 4 high, 4 low, and neutral. 2 4 high, neutral, and 4 low. And that again gives us kind of infinite adjustability. Now under XJ and some ZJ applications, there is actually a couple good companies. Specifically, one that I want to talk about is Azzy Design Works out of Pittsburgh, and he creates a hard turnbuckle. It's not really a turnbuckle, but it's a rod end design that replaces the Z linkage. It works wonderfully on XJs and some ZJ models, but not as effective on TJs. Bye, Greg. He's getting his own pizza. Oh boy. And it works great on XJs and ZJ applications. What we have discovered is a lot more challenging on TJ Wranglers. TJs, LJs, because of the frame to body. We have a rubber or poly bushing, and those two are kind of often moving independent. So the issue of having a hard or fixed linkage is very challenging in a TJ or LJ application. But the cable works seamlessly. And what it does, again, is it gives us infinite adjustability so that we can grab each gear, no matter if you still have the transfer case drop, whether you've got a body lift, whether you have 1 inch of lift, whether you have 3 inches of lift, whether you've put the transfer case in the trunk. I don't really care. The cable gets the job done the best on those applications, or even in then custom applications. So Z linkage is unfortunately, it's a fixed unit. It comes, the engineers and then workers, as it comes off the plant, it's fixed. It knows exactly, they know exactly where to put it, retain good functionality. And then eventually, as we go to upgrade you, we want to upgrade you into a cable. Again, learning from our past, because of course we start seeing fixed Z linkage starting in '84 under the XJ platform. So we see it start in '84. It becomes widely adapted by '87. We use it all the way up through 2006 as our primary function of shifting into or engaging four-wheel drive. 2007, they produced the JK. What does it have? Cable. Go figure. So, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the engineers at Jeep Chrysler. I understand oftentimes they are at the mercy of financial and governmental regulations, but I do believe that there are, and I've met quite a few of them, I believe that they really are good, diehard Jeepers who want the best, and they're constantly learning and improving on design. So here we are. And again, that go back to dual shear. They are fixed, but double shear track bars, and now all of our transfer cases with our JK and JL platforms are cable driven at that point. So cool technologies that that are upgrades for some of our older models. And then obviously, just standard options, or not options, standard on our newest platform. So what's up, Justin? Proper pinion angle. Yes, those are all important. USA always. Wish you were closer. You'd be my, thank you so much. I wish we were closer as well, so we do that. Important fun fact, 33% or roughly a third of our vehicles come in on transport. Just something fun to know about SFJ, that many of our vehicles, now some of them I understand just come in on flatbed trucks, but many of them are trucked in from outside of an hour and a half, and that's cool. That's one of the things we're prepared to address, and that we have our checks and balances to ensure that's a good process for you. I'm not sure that I see anybody who's gotten a pizza yet. I'm looking through. I'm not sure, Scott L's going to work that out. I mean, we want to take care of somebody, fill their belly, tip the driver, take care of the whole kit and caboodle. So hopefully that's going well on his end. Unless there was, something else impactful that somebody's asking, and of course I've gotten the questions, when is my Jeep going to leave? It's appropriate for me to address that because we do have good customers who have Jeeps stuck up in our building right now. We are doing the best we can. We are dealing with shipment issues is probably one of our biggest things, where it's taking 4, 5, 10 days longer than it normally would to get really basic stuff shipped to us from our manufacturers, from our warehouse distribution. So we're trying. And Skaggs, I'm going to get your estimate to you by the end of the day. That's the goal. That's the goal. And I'm really excited because our service writer and mad scientist, and if you've watched any of our podcasts, Scott Brown will be stopping by this afternoon. We haven't seen him in a long time. He's been taking care of family and his wife, and so we wish the best to all of our frontline workers, grocery store, medical, factory, manufacturing, delivery, warehousing, all of those folks. we thank you that you're giving us an opportunity to, to remain open in a limited capacity to keep supporting the Jeep community the way that we want to. So, that's huge. And again, that's part of what Scott's been doing, taking care of his family and his wife and their situation. So I'm excited to see him. That would be very cool. And hopefully we'll get him worked back into the fold here in the near future, catch up on some projects. I hope somebody's going to be getting a pizza today. I'll touch base with Scott L. Again, this was a lot of fun. Good questions. I hope that we've covered a lot of ground. We have been the last live. I know we passed it on to our YouTube manager, Steph, and I believe she is getting it uploaded. Oh my goodness. That guy is here. That guy is here. I was just talking about him. I'm so, look at this. That's genuine. That is genuine appreciation and excitement. All right. You know what, Jeep family, stay safe. Hope that you found this helpful. I think we'll do it again in a couple weeks. Maybe we'll try and give away some food. Scott, Don says hi. He says hi back. Jeep family, love you guys. Stay safe. And make sure you check us out on all of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Give us some feedback. Hit us up for some parts that you need in the near future. And we'll see you again in the near couple weeks. Take care.
Hey Jeep family, Scott L here checking in. A huge thank you to everyone that joined us for the live. We had a great turnout. I went ahead, I wrote down everybody's name as you logged in live. Probably about 100 people. I put everybody's name. I'm gonna do a little old school. Put everybody's name in a hat, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pick a name off out of the hat. Contact you or get a hold of me. We'll get a pizza sent over to you here this afternoon for late lunch or dinner. And let's see here. Let's go ahead and pick a winner out. James O'Malley, you're the winner here. So James, I will be in contact with you. We'll get that set up. A couple other things that I'm personally working on, looking at getting a Mother's Day giveaway out there. Hopefully this afternoon. We got a great prize pack put together. Either later today or tomorrow, we're going to get that live. So stay tuned for that. Stay safe, and can't wait to see everybody out on the trails, hopefully sooner than later.